What is the scariest slash most unexplainable thing you've come across in the woods? Me and a friend of mine heard some weird almost Celtic chanting when taking a walk through the woods. As if someone was sacrificing a cow. I wanted to investigate, but he almost crapped his pants, so we just rushed home before it was too dark. I was 11 exploring the woods with my bro when we came across a small clearing with a red and white checkered picnic blanket that had a skinned, bloody, chopped up animal carcass on top, baking in the sun. When I was younger, I lived on the road for a couple of years, traveling with my girlfriend. One night, we were camping in Cavello, in Northern California. As soon as the sun went down, my girlfriend freaked out and started saying, "We shouldn't be here. We shouldn't be here." I couldn't calm her down, so we packed up and left. We had been together for several years and I had never seen her act like that. A couple of weeks later, we were talking with someone in Mendocino and he told us about that place's history. Apparently it had been the site of a massacre of more than 1,000 Native Americans. My dad used to live on a farm in the middle of nowhere. He had a huge piece of land that used to have an old farmhouse that got burned down a long time ago. They had a medium-sized section of woods on the land and nearby the entrance to the woods, if I took a turn, there was a small graveyard with a family of the farmers who used to live on the land. Maybe 200 or so years old. There was another small section of woods that separated another older section of the graveyard. Don't know why. One day, I was exploring as I used to love to do, my favorite was finding my way to the graveyard and then to explore further from there. Middle of the day I went. With the dog. I looked toward the section of woods that separated the two graveyard areas and I saw this huge figure. Like a human, but really tall. Too tall to be human. It was also bright and this thing was pitch black, like it didn't even have any shadow or depth to it, it was just black. The dog barked at it, it looked like it shifted in my direction, and I ran like hell. Didn't look back. Just ran. National Park Rangers, what's the strangest thing you've seen or heard while on the job? Where do I begin? I seen two guys in a moose costume ride on breeding season. That wouldn't even hit top 10, though. The 12-foot bear-looking creature on its hind legs, anywhere it was, became icy. The next morning, it disappeared and the ice remained. This was in July. I used to work as a security in the summer and there is a road where deer will often cross to get food. And I saw a deer cut it in half with blood everywhere. They classified it as a car accident, but it was definitely not a car nor a predator. My brother worked 2 seasons in Yosemite in hospitality. Worked 6 days a week and would trail run on his 1 day off. Almost without fail, as he was running out of the valley, he would encounter guests that would ask for help. And if he would give them his water. Many times, he would still be in the first mile of his run and could literally point to the lodge and say, "Just walk that direction." Other things. What time do they let the animals out? When do they turn off the waterfall? Right at sunset one day, we had a call for a woman in all white crying on the boardwalk. When we got there, a number of people described a distraught woman in an old-fashioned dress wandering the boardwalks, crying. Apparently, she didn't react or respond to anyone trying to talk to her. We looked for a while and never found anyone. Not the weirdest story in the world, but was an odd one. Not a ranger, but I was a 911 operator and answered a call of a report of a small girl walking a path through a national park at night by herself. It was the ranger that was seemingly so spooked of the situation. He wouldn't approach the victim. I assured him it was alright and all and could hear him hesitantly call out a couple times, but he sounded scared. I let him know officers would be there soon and about 10 minutes later, the FRS got in contact with me again and said they found him walking back on the path, white as a ghost and unable to recount anything he's seen. He said he saw a girl and had no information otherwise. I never heard much more about it, but they launched a search team and everything and never found anyone. I don't know if it's relevant, but it's always freaked me the fuck out thinking about it. I did some volunteer work helping clear brush in Texas state parks a couple times a year and we came across a trail of 6 dead animals that looked like they were torn to shreds. Pretty common, as Texas has mountain cats and coyotes. This was different though. They led off trail and into this dried up ravine where 2 armadillo bodies were lying, spread open on a rock with blood and entrails everywhere. We ended up calling the ranger to come down and inspect it. Turns out he experienced that kind of thing occasionally, but never more than 1 or 2 bodies. The animals weren't hunted, they were sacrificed by kids who used to sneak into the park at night and do rituals. After searching the area with him, guess what we found? Some animal entrails nailed to a tree. Below the tree, the grass was cleared and a little rock formation was made at its base. I didn't think people actually did that crap. What's your favorite creepy campfire story? There were a couple that were, as far as I know, unique to the church camp, Camp Gaylor Maxon, I went to as a kid. Though I admit it's possible some of our stories were ubiquitous ones just adapted to the place, I don't really know. One of them, though, I do have first-hand knowledge about, it's the story of Sydney. The camp was established on an old piece of property that has been a lot of different things over the years. Back during the war, it was a girls' boarding school. One girl who was there was deeply in love with a boy who had gone off to fight. They exchanged letters constantly until one day the letters stopped coming. Few weeks later, she gets word that her beloved was killed in action. She was so distraught that she offed herself in her dorm room. There's still a plaque by the door of the room in her memory. Now, I know for a fact that room is haunted. I stayed in that room 1 year when I worked for the camp. One night, after lights out, the fan came on by itself. It started spinning faster and faster until it started wobbling really hard, acting like it's about to fall off. I knew the stories, so I shouted, "Stop it, Sydney. I'm a friend." Fan immediately stopped. Like. Not just slowed down and came to an eventual stop. It's like someone grabbed the fan blades and stopped it. This is a pretty common one, but it always scared the crap out of my little cousins. Here it goes, there once was a girl named Mary Sue. She would always wear a bow around her neck. The kids at school would always say, Mary Sue, take off that bow will you? But she refused. In high school, her best friends asked her to take it off as they had gone out of fashion, but Mary Sue refused. One day, Mary Sue met the man of her dreams and he asked her to take off her bow, but she replied, one day you will find out. Almost 60 years later, after Mary Sue's children had grown up and moved out, Mary Sue went up to her husband. Do you want to see what is under my bow? She asked. Her husband put down his newspaper. Are you sure? You've never taken it off. I am sure, my love, Mary Sue said, pulling the end of her bow. The bow fell to the ground, shortly followed by her head, then the rest of her body. I don't really know of a name for this, but besides the ones you hear in elementary school, like Black Box and the one with the girl and the dog, this is the one I know the best that's actually scary. The group of hikers were wandering through the woods, looking for a place to stay at night, when they came across a small cabin. They all decided to stay the night inside, seeing as there was no one there. Inside, the cabin is decorated with paintings of what seemed to be members of the family that used to own the cabin. The hikers spend the night looking at the paintings and making fun of how wonky they looked. In the morning, one wakes up to see the cabin full of morning light and looks around. The paintings are gone, in their place, windows.
Watch to the end to hear stories about sleep paralysis.
Eerie towns, disappearing diners, and creepy gas stations. What's your true unexplained story of being in a place that shouldn't exist? When my brother and I were 10 and 12 respectively, our family went on a hike through the cemetery and into the woods not far from our house. My brothers and I would explore these woods every day, even camped in them before. We knew it like the back of our hands. Anyway, as the family hits our usual spot by the creek halfway through, brother 1 and I said we'd be back in a few. We wanted to wander off further up creek. So we did. We came across a very large hill we had never seen before. It was littered with what looked like someone's worldly possessions. As if they turned a house upside down, shook out the contents, took the house and left. There were tons of painted X on the trees, showing someone intended to cut them down at some point. We poked around for a few when we thought we heard our mom hollering at us. So we turned tail and walked maybe 20 feet back down the hill to where our parents were. The entire encounter was maybe 45 minutes long on our end. As soon as our mom saw us, we got the beating of a lifetime. We had actually been gone almost 4 hours. She never saw us walk up any hill and remembered seeing us meandering down the straight path by the creek, not turning up a hill that was 20 feet away. She and her husband and our other brother combed the woods for over 4 hours, screaming our names, and couldn't find hide nor tail of us. We pleaded our case and even tried showing her the hill. Surely she was messing with us. So we stomped up to the turnoff for the hill and it was gone. Nowhere to be seen. For years we explored the woods determined to find that fucking hill. We covered miles and miles of off-path woods. As we got older we mapped it out. To this day that hill does not exist. We never found it again. Never found the weird furniture, toys, clothes, and other household items that were scattered across the hill. And never met anyone in the area that had a clue about the hill. We probably just wandered way further than we meant to, but I always found it weird that we never found the hill again. Have you ever had sleep paralysis? If so, what was it like? 13-year-old me woke up and couldn't move like how you'd expect. I had a TV that was at the end of my bed and I just remember a black figure crawling out, like a girl in the ring, except it started crawling on the ceiling. As it got above me, I blinked and it seemed to teleport over by my left side, then looked at me for 5 seconds or so. It all ended right after that. I just remember going downstairs crying hard as I explained it to my mom. It was awful. Only time it's ever happened. Scared to death that it'll happen again. I've had a bunch of scary experiences with sleep paralysis, but I've also had a pretty cool one. I once had a sleep paralysis event where I heard some sweet rock music. It had guitar, drums, and vocals. It even had a freaking guitar solo. I wish I remembered the words to the song, but I was so scared when this happened. All I remember was that it rhymed at appropriate times and there was actually meaning in the song. That was a really special moment for me. Terrible. I couldn't move at all. My heart was racing. I saw a tall black figure moving toward my bed. I hadn't heard of sleep paralysis, so I assumed it was a ghost or something for a short while. Now I don't sleep on my back. Just in case. Usually whenever I have them, they appear in the corner of my room. They're tall and impossibly thin, with large and long hands, all pitch shadows with red circles where eyes should be. They sort of resemble people. They usually just come up and sit on the edge of my bed and pat my knee gently, as if to comfort me. They aren't mean or anything. They go between looking at me and just looking at things around my room, reading posters, etc. Eventually they sort of just dissolve into thin air and then they're gone. It's a weird experience, but I'm glad it's not deeply horrifying. Only had one experience. I woke up and this thing was crawling on me. At first, I thought it was my sister, since it was female. But realized it couldn't be since I was an adult and she was miles away. It placed its head on the small of my back and started moaning. Even though I couldn't see it with my eyes, I could still see it. Its skin was oily black, no face except for a mouth with pointed teeth.
Thank you for watching. Which story did you like best? Give feedback in the comments. Subscribe to not miss new stories.